Hello, welcome to another Ready Aim Raw video. It's spooky season, so I wanted to do something that I've wanted to do basically since last year, and that is to tell some wonderfully creepy little ghost stories and share some folklore around places that I love. Um, because I just love this stuff. Whether I believe in ghosts or not, I'm kind of on the fence on. Um, more, just slightly more on the side of yes than no. But also, I'm a cynical dickhead. So, I am very much the type of person to second guess the things that go bump in the night, as it were. Um, but yeah, it's something that's fascinated me basically since I was young. Um, yeah, I do think I have had spooky encounters. There have definitely been things in my life that have happened where I could give a dozen explanations for what they might be. It almost definitely, as anyone could, but you know, there are things where they don't always quite add up. So it always ends up being that something, you know, something might have happened, maybe not. I've lived in places that had weird vibes about them. Um, I lived in, I spent a good chunk of my life growing up in a house that was it was very old house in Plymouth, and there were times where it just felt odd in there, just felt weird. There was a time that I distinctly remember, even my mum seeing something move past my dad's head, um, and not fully understanding or knowing what that was. Like that could have been a trick of the light, obviously, but it's something that will always stick with me. That we were down in the kitchen having a chat one evening. Um, and I think it was around dinner time, so it was everyone, all five of us, me, my siblings, my parents, and we were chatting. Turned to my dad, he was saying something, and then just something, and I remember my mum going, "What was that?" And we were all just like, "Yeah, what was that?" Like I imagine now, maybe that's I imagine that's something that my parents and a lot of the rest of my family might have forgotten at this point. But it's something that I distinctly remember, and also just that area has bridges that were damaged by shrapnel from World War Two. Not a lot, but there were holes from shrapnel and things like that, and they're still there, or at least they were last time I checked. Um, and then after we moved, there was also another house that just I remember standing um just underneath the stairs and just feeling odd, just feeling really, really odd in a way that I couldn't even now fully explain. There were times where I'd be home alone and I'd feel uneasy. Which normally when I'm alone, I don't feel uneasy. I am very much someone who enjoys the quiet of their own company. I enjoy, just sitting down sometimes and just like I enjoy my own company anyway. Like I enjoy just walking and listening to a podcast or having music on. I don't like traveling with people. Does my head in. Um, but especially when I've got a chance to just sit down and just be calm and just not have to think about, you know, social interactions, how I'm coming across, the things I'm saying, are they sounding right to other people? Am I coming across as an asshole? So it is nice for me to just sit down and go. But there were times in that house where I just felt weird. Like I didn't feel like I was in any danger. I didn't even feel, like I had to leave. I just felt not even like I was being watched. I just felt odd in that house in ways that I don't fully understand or know how to explain. And then there's loads of other times, but getting off track already. Anyway, this series is a fun one for me because it means I get to explore areas that I love. Um, Starting off with ghost stories and folklore from around where I grew up in Plymouth, mostly focused on Dartmoor at the moment because Dartmoor is a fascinating place. And now I've got the hiccups. And it's truly, truly fascinating and a place that I would love to go back to, and especially around this time of year before it gets too cold. Have a good, maybe 15, 16 degrees Celsius. Fairly nice weather, bright day. Have a walk, up, up across the Tors and around the Tors. Um, like in an ideal world, that's where I'd be doing that. That's where I'd be doing this series. It would be. I'd probably invest in some kit, a camera, a mic, and I'd be telling these stories, you know, from the top of Hound's Tor while walking the Lich Way, which is a thing that is creepy as hell. The stories are rad. But no, I live in a shithole in London. I no longer live in that wonderful bit of England. Um, I mean, technically, no longer do my parents. They live in Cornwall now. Though I do also love visiting there, and I might have to try and see if there are any weird stories from around there because it's a small village with a lot of still some older buildings. So maybe maybe someone in that village has some weird stories. I'd like to know. Speaking of liking to know, I would also like to know if you've got any weird spooky stories, if you've got ghost stories, let me know. I'd love to hear them, and maybe I'll you know I'll shout you out. I'll tell those stories. Because I love, love, love hearing people's ghost stories, whether they're anecdotal or personal experiences, or just, hey, here's a weird Victorian ghost story that I grew up on. Just shit like that fascinates me. I love it. I will lap that stuff up. Which is why I've sort of done this today, uh, in the hopes that it will inspire other people. whether it's to create encounters for their TTRPG sessions, because God knows a good D&D campaign isn't complete without something spooky happening at least once. It's like a maybe not part of the main, but as part of like a little side thing, like a one shot. They Ghost stories are often great for inspiring stuff like that, and that's partly what I want to do this series for. Though there's also just something fun about hearing spooky tales from around the country from different people. Yeah, storytelling is such a fascinating, wonderful thing to me. And it is something that I genuinely believe everyone has in them somewhere. Even the most, rigid, scientifically minded person has a fascinating story to tell, and can tell it in a fascinating way. So yeah, today's going to be fun, and hopefully future episodes are also going to be fun. I don't know what I'm calling this series. It might be spooky time. So if you've got anything better than that, please tell me. um, so yeah, if this is something that intrigues you, that you enjoy, sound off in the comments. I'd love to know, and also subscribe and like. Um, so yeah, I will forewarn people, because I feel it's just the right thing to do, that the today's story is a unhappy one, as a lot of them are. A lot of ghost stories are unhappy, but today's especially touches on some difficult subject matter that some people might might not enjoy hearing. It has a strong subject of suicide, and there is a moment that I have skirted around, because most retellings of this story don't touch on it, but it is something that I found while I was reading up and researching this, and it does touch on sexual assault. So if that does bother you, again, it's brief. It is very brief. It's just like not even one line. But if that bothers you in any way, please just, there are other videos on this channel, and there are other retellings and other versions of this story that don't touch on it. And like I say, I only mention it briefly as, hey, here's one version of the story, because it's a ghost story. There are dozens at this point, even of this one. So yeah, please, look after yourselves. Take care of take care of your own mental well-being. But if you do decide to stick around, I'm going to be reading from my phone. Here's the script. I'll probably put music and images and things like that over it. So yeah, whatever it is you're doing right now, maybe you're doing some miniature painting, which is the sort of thing that I love this sort of stuff for. Or if it is late evening, late night, maybe you just want something to sit back and chill to, which is also what I want this for people. So maybe pour yourself a hot drink. And I might, in future do that myself. But yeah, so today we are going to be talking about Kitty J's grave. If you walk the roads between Heatree and Houndtor in the southwest of England, you may come across a small, unmarked burial ground. It belongs to a young woman named Kitty J. also known by some as either Anne, Mary, though we'll briefly get into this later. Kitty J is believed to have been an orphan, abandoned to a local poorhouse in New Abbott sometime in the late 1700s. Given the surname J, just simply as this was custom at the time for orphans to be given surnames, just based on the register. They would be given names with the letters. So, just very briefly, someone would have a name beginning with A, and then B, and C, and so on and so on. And it just so happened that it was when poor Anne or Mary came through the door, it was J that she got. Which, anyway, she grew up, and when she came of age, she was sent to apprentice in a local farm, both to work in the house and in the field, which was rough work, really, really rough work, especially for the time. Not a fun, thing to be doing for anyone. It is also here that she got the name J, because, well, it was often, oftentimes people would rename their servants, just sort of, I guess, almost detaching that person from who they were previously, which is very unpleasant, more than a little bit dehumanizing. It is also here at this farm that at some point during her time, she, depending on the story, was either assaulted or perhaps more pleasantly, she fell in love with the farmer's son. And for a very brief time, she felt something that maybe she hadn't felt maybe in her life. She felt loved. She felt wanted, not just because she was a labourer, but because she was a person. There was some love, or at least that's what she thought. Either way, whether it was the more or less pleasant outcome, she fell pregnant, and as you may well know, falling pregnant out of wedlock, especially back then, was very much frowned upon. And once the owner of the farm found out, she was told to leave. She was made homeless. She was shunned and seen basically as little more than a prostitute by many. She was seen as cheap and easy, but she was so easily swayed and I imagine the bloke got almost none of this scorn, none of this unpleasantness. Either way, Kitty was thrown out, made homeless, and knowing that because of this, because she was now pregnant with a child out of wedlock, that no one else would take her in. And she also just didn't want to return to the poorhouse because, again, she would be shunned and shamed for her actions, basically. And seeing no other option, she took her own life. Depending on the story, she hung herself from a barn, or in some cases she chose to drown herself in a pool. Either way, again, something that historically people did not like. During this period in history, suicide was seen as a horrific blasphemy, and as such, those who took their own lives weren't given proper burials. They were buried in unconsecrated, unhallowed land, and often at a crossroads with a stake through their heart. It was the common belief that doing so would make sure that if the spirit of the deceased were to come back, that they would not be able to find their way back to their parish, to the people that had wronged them, and it would basically pin them to the spot they were buried. So they were sort of stuck there, just pinned, literally and metaphorically pinned to the spot. And there is possibly some merit to this story, because sometime in the 1850s, a landowner at the time had found the burial mound after hearing about these stories, and discovered that there were in fact bones in there. So someone had been buried there, possibly. And naturally, taking a little bit of pity on this woman who had been buried in an unmarked grave, in just a pit, basically, with no ceremony, no mourners, decided that he was going to raise the grave above ground and give it at least some sort of a headstone. He didn't fully know who this person was, but he was going to give this grave at least some ceremony. And almost immediately after Kitty's death, strange occurrences started happening, and keep happening until the modern day. Most commonly, on moonless nights, people have seen stooped, cloaked, hooded figures, often in black, standing nearby or over the grave. And as ever, there are many stories and theories about who this could be. Some think it's the farmer or the farmer's son, who feel now remorse for driving this woman to take her own life. Some think it is Kitty herself, a lost and forlorn apparition, condemned to the crossroads. But it's not just the ghosts that are odd about this place. There's also flowers that are seen at this grave, and have been seen being freshly placed seemingly every morning. No one knows who does it. No one's owned up to it. There was a period where the author Beatrix Chase said that she was placing flowers on the grave, but she died in the 1950s. So who is keeping up with this tradition into the modern day, even right up to I'd assume there's flowers on that grave even right now. Who's doing it now is unknown, especially in terms of the fresh flowers. Sometimes people have found wildflowers. Sometimes it's stuff you'd find in house plants and things like that. But they're always there. They're always freshly placed in the morning or at some point during the day. And because of this, it has become a bit of a tradition to leave your own offering on poor Kitty J's grave. Some leave coins as an offering. Others leave their own flowers. Sometimes it's, little trinkets, but mostly, more often than not, it's coins and flowers. It just as perhaps a message to Kitty or Anne or Mary, whatever her name might have been, that despite all the awfulness and all the hardship that happened to her, and the fact that she is now buried in this unholy place, that she's not been forgotten by time, that there are people who think fondly of her, who love her. So perhaps next time you visit this atmospheric corner of England, you'll pay a visit to Jay's grave and leave a sign that, like so many others who felt they had nothing else to live for, that they have not and will not be forgotten. So yeah, that is quite a dour, sad story. But it is, when I was thinking about doing this as a series, it's one of the first that struck a chord with me. It is a story that I have known of for most of my life. It's a place that people have mentioned to me in the past, but it's never. I don't think I've ever visited it personally. Maybe as a kid, and I just don't remember. But especially as someone who has known people who have taken their own life, as someone who has dealt with mental health and shit like that, it struck a chord with me, especially the whole bit of people leaving their mark, showing that no matter who you are, there is someone out there who matters, who you matter to. So yeah, I do hope you enjoyed this video. Whether you watched it or whether you listened to it as a more secondary experience, either is wonderful. Thank you. And if you want more of this, or if you want to experience this early, then there are many ways to support us and allow such things to happen. First off, like and subscribe, please. Thank you. So yeah, again, I hope you enjoyed that. You might be able to notice I am losing my voice because this is, I don't know how many takes I've done of this. But I need some water. And I'm going to enjoy some spooky stuff myself. So yeah. I hope to catch you next time I talk about some spooky stuff at this spooky time. Please don't let that be the name of this thing. Anyway, see ya.